Hello, good morning, and welcome. I'm Bob Rogers, Executive Director of Coastside Land Trust. I would like to welcome you to this edition of the Coastside Land Trust free community webinar series. The Coastside Land Trust is dedicated to the preservation, protection, and enhancement of the open space environment, including the natural, scenic, recreational, cultural, historical, and agricultural resources of Half Moon Bay and the San Mateo County coast for present and future generations. We are a nonprofit organization working hard since 1997 to safeguard our scenic bluffs, open space, stream corridors, and agricultural lands. From the southern city limits of Half Moon Bay north through the community of Montera in San Mateo County. Taking a strategic approach to land conservation, we protect land by purchasing and accepting donations of land and conservation easements. We secure private and public funding for land conservation. We provide assistance and resources to landowners interested in protecting their land. And we lead local conservation, restoration, stewardship, and educational activities. And every day we remain dedicated to protecting our coastline and our future. As members of our community and valued Coastside Land Trust supporters, we ask you to make choices that support our organization and our important work. This can be done by donating through our website. Other easy ways to donate are through planned giving of assets through wills and living trusts, vehicle donation, gifts of stock, or tribute gifts, all showing up for work days and passing along our message and our mission. The important part here is that we all do our part in whatever way we can to protect and steward our shared open spaces. Thank you for joining us here today. We have a very special treat for you, and it is my pleasure to turn it over to Kate Dickey, our social media coordinator, to introduce our presenter, Barbara Dye. Take it away, Kate.
Thanks, Bob. And thank you to all of you for joining us here for our free community webinar series. Our hope is that this series will allow you and us all to learn from the breadth of esteemed and relevant environmental vantage points, each geared towards educating us about the living world and our connection to it, so that we can know it more and make choices that support caring for the environment on a local and global level. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Barbara Dye. She is a member of the Coastside Land Trust Stewardship Committee, and she has been a member. She's been working with the organization since 2014, where she helps to monitor all of Coastside Land Trust properties. But before moving to the coastside, she helped to found and was the executive director for the Palos Verde Peninsula Land Conservancy. And there she led a whole bunch of different efforts, but one of them including an effort to raise $5 million to purchase open space and create a 2,000-acre nature preserve in LA County. Assemblywoman Bonnie Lowenthal named her as Woman of the Year for her work in land preservation. She's also on the board of the Granada Community Service District, and she's a docent at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. So we're really lucky to have her today. Today, she's going to be leading us on a virtual tour of the Coastside Land Trust land, including the trails and flowers and birds and surprising discoveries along the way. She's going to talk about some of the challenges of the small land trust and what we face, and then in how we protect and conserve the values of the property. Before we begin, just one more thing. We have a couple of ground rules for those of you who have not been to one of these webinars before. Just please type your questions into the Q&A section. This is a great opportunity to ask questions of Barbara and of us all, but we will save those questions until the end, and we'll have a formal Q&A session at the end. So just type those in and we'll get to those at the end. We hope you enjoy this presentation. It gives you an opportunity to gain a greater awareness and understanding and appreciation of this beautiful place right here on our coast. Barbara, are you ready to get started? All right. Without further ado.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let's go for a walk on the coastside. Welcome to this webinar. Bob just read the mission statement for Coastside Land Trust. Here it is again, and I think it's important to see that this organization is dedicated to the preservation, protection, and enhancement of open space for education, for agriculture, for historic purposes, and of course for the environment. The webinar is going to share with you more about the open space Coastside Land Trust has preserved and watches over. There's not going to be many words, so these stars show the extent, the locations of the properties, and we're going to go into much more specifics about them later. But there are three kinds of properties. The yellow ones are ones that Coastside Land Trust owns in fee. That means they actually own the entire property. The green ones are areas where Coastside Land Trust owns individual lots, and we monitor the entire area where those lots are, called a monitoring area, and because the birds and the plants and so forth have no idea where the lot lines are. And then the blue ones are conservation easements. Those are private lands that are owned by either the city or a homeowners association or a property owner. And Coastside Land Trust has a conservation easement over it. We monitor those, but we are not going to talk about those today. We're going to talk about the 10 properties that are along the coastline. Here are their names. You can see we start with the El Granada Management Area and then head north to south. We're going to go from north to El Granada, south to Purissima Old Town Site, which we affectionately call POTS. These are new maps that show the, it doesn't show El Granada or POTS, but these show the areas where Coastside Land Trust owns property, all the purple rectangles, and the orange is the railroad right-of-way easement. And we're going to talk about each of these areas in more detail as we go along. The Stewardship Committee at Coastside Land Trust has a lot of responsibilities. We do the yearly monitoring of each of these areas. On the left is our monitoring team with Bob Rogers, Barbara Lohman, who's chair of the Land Trust Board and chair of the Stewardship Committee, Terry Sweeney, one of our bird experts, Elaine Gray, and I want to thank them more specifically in a bit, and then Robin Arkell, and John Zimmer, who runs Team Zimmer, which is a group that goes out and deals with some of the issues on the properties. And on the right, you have the Zoom meeting for our Stewardship Committee, which also includes board member Sarah Polgar and staff April Ramos and and Bob Rogers, and Jan Leonard, one of the community members, who is the world's expert on banana slugs. So a great asset to what Coastside Land Trust does on the properties. Here we are out in the field, and for each of these areas, we go once a year. This year we changed it. In the past, we'd done it all year round. We'd scattered them through the years, which meant that in the fall, we got really good at identifying dead plants. But we decided that it would be more effective and more representative of what's actually on these properties to do them in the spring. So in the spring, we've been going every single Monday, pretty much, to a different property. On the right, you can see the spreadsheet that we have for the plants, where we check off what we see. We started out with like a page and a half, and now we're up to 4 pages. Robin is really great at finding and identifying new plants. We use iNaturalist, and we use Seek, and we use guidebooks, take pictures and so forth. And then the list for each year is included in the monitoring report. We also are very appreciative of the help that we get from some expert birders, Elaine Gray on the left, and Malia De Felice and Chris Hayward on the right, who do a wonderful job for us, coming, counting the birds, and also providing additional help with the natural features of the properties we're visiting. Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about these 10 ones. Each area will start with a look at the maps, and that will be followed by just a couple pictures so that you can visualize it. Then we're going to talk about the challenges that property faces. Then we're going to talk about all the great things there are about that property, including, the kind of birds and how many native plants we saw and so forth. And then we're just going to finish up with a few views of each property. So starting with El Granada, this is, as you can see on this map with the stars, it's kind of in the back of El Granada. 3 lots were donated. It's a very nice little canyon. It's difficult to monitor because the willows are so thick. You can see on the aerial photo on the right how thick the willows are. We would love to purchase or have a donation of some of the other ones in this area because it's a terrific canyon and it's connected to GGNRA. So it's a really nice transition and kind of a pathway through the community. Here's a view from one of the driveways. We monitored it on March 9th this year. We use NavCam. You can see we take the monitoring photos with a program that prints the coordinates and the date and so forth in the corner of it. So we have a good record of what it looked like this year. And we try to take the same photos every year or as close as we can get. What makes this area special? Well, it has some horsetail, which is a really nice native plant. It's one of the oldest plants on Earth. And on the right, we have some thimbleberry, another nice plant. Again, this one is small, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we saw 40 plant species and 18 native plants on that property. And just look at those beautiful thick willows in that canyon. Moving on to Dunes Surf Beach monitoring area. This is the one that has hay growing in it during the year. Coastside Land Trust, you can see on the left the lots that Coastside Land Trust owns within the property. And on the right, you can see Young Avenue and so forth, and then the state park on the ocean side of it. There's some shots that just show you what it looks like when it's starting to grow in the spring and after it's done in the fall. We did our monitoring in the spring. Now, one of the things about these monitoring areas is that Coastside Land Trust doesn't actually do activities on properties it doesn't own. It's very respectful of the private property rights. But we do, when we monitor, we note things like the trash that's all around the edges of this property that if we own the lots, it would be great to clean up. One of the other issues that we face in a lot of properties is that the stands of trees tend to start spreading out into the prairies, and Coastside Land Trust loves trees, and we do not want to get rid of these stands of trees. They're really important for raptors and lots of other things, but they do tend to have small ones creep out into the prairies, and the prairies are really important for the raptors to do their foraging. So we need to keep that balance. And here we are removing a few baby eucalyptus. What makes this area special? We saw 22 species of birds. We saw 3 common yellowthroat this year, which is a species of special concern. And in the past, we have seen tricolor blackbirds around here, and also at Venice Beach, another threatened species. We saw a whole bunch of killdeer and some white-crowned sparrows, which are in the bottom left there. And we have 2 populations of white-crowned sparrows here on the coast. One that lives here and one that migrates, and they sing different songs. And they look similar, but there are definitely differences that you can spot if you know the difference. We saw, even though this whole field is covered with growing hay, we still found some skunkweed, native plant, and some vetch and some poppy. And just here's a view of it, looking pretty in the spring. Waves of grain, I guess. And then at the end of the season, after the hay had been baled up. One of the notes on the birds on this site is that the state park area immediately adjacent to it is a very important spot for nesting birds. So this provides, again, foraging areas and support for the birds that are nesting near it. Moving on to Venice Beach. Venice Beach is next one south. Here's the property. Now, the parts on the left on the bottom, those lots are the ones that are for sale. There's 3 lots for sale there for $14 million, which we don't have the funding for, unfortunately. So the focus is really on the northern part of it on both sides of Venice Boulevard. It's an interesting area because it's got big areas of natural stuff and then big areas of invasive stuff. Again, it's adjacent to the state parks. Here we are out monitoring. Here's a view of the property. Another view of the property. Lots of coffee berry on this site and lots of rabbits. The challenges. This has got some nasty invasive plants. There's a lot of dead pine trees. There's the upper right is something called annual mercury, which is spreading all over the peninsula. On the left is bull clover, bull thistle, which can spread and take over. Some jubata grass. It's commonly called pampas grass, but its name is actually jubata grass. And then mustard, which can be very pretty and people like it, but it's also very invasive and it keeps out the non-native plants. Again, we have trash, various spots on this property, and there's been some history of homeless encampments and people trying to make themselves little living spaces on this property. What makes it special? This year we saw 30 species of bird, including a bunch with breeding behavior. On the left is a male and a female common yellowthroat. Up in the top we have a house finch and a goldfinch, and the bottom a spotted towhee, and on the right are two shots of two thrashers, California thrashers. It's one of the main locations. They breed here on this property, and it's important that this is pretty much the only place, one of the few places, there are a few others, where the thrashers breed on the coast side. Such a cool bird, makes a weird noise. We saw 44 plant species there. We've got some primrose, some bush beach strawberry, some elderberry, some California aster, the purple one down below. That's willow dock, yarrow, and pink everlasting. So native plants are scattered through this property, even though it's got a lot of invasives in it. And then this is the one that I mentioned, I think. Every picture in this presentation was taken in 2024 on the monitoring area properties, except this one, which was taken in 2024, but was taken a little farther out to the coast. But this long-tailed weasel, I thought was so cool that I wanted to put it in to show that it's in the area, and you never know if it's just long-tailed weasel. If it's just to out coastward, it may very well be also foraging in this area. So here's just a few pictures of it. You can see it's a mix of stuff. There's some big coffee berry bushes. Grasses and trees. And moving on to Francis Beach. This is a funny little area that you're probably not even familiar with. This is, you see here, you can see this is the campground, the Francis Beach campground in the state park. And this right over here is the monitoring area. And you can see Coastside Land Trust owns quite a few parcels here. Up here in the top, you can see across this is right up to Pilarcitos Creek, and it's across the river from the sewer treatment plant. We don't think that public access, well, so far the properties that we've been looking at are not really suitable for public access because Coastside Land Trust doesn't own enough of the lots and so forth. Here, we're not going to be looking at public access because the California Coastal Trail goes right along the side of this. So it's really important for the habitat and for the views that you can get from there. Picture of, this is the section over by the river. Here we are, we did it on June something, I can't read it. It's covered on my screen. The intrepid stewardship team. The challenges, lots of invasive non-native plants. Up in the upper left is fennel, It's a really hard one to get rid of, and it's starting to really spread on the coast side. Upper right is Italian thistle. Look at how thick it grows, and it just drives everything else out. And the bottom left is bristly ox tongue, sort of at the end of its life. It's a really, try to walk through this, you end up with seeds in your sneakers and your legs and everything else. And you can see how thick these grow and drive out all the native plants. And the bottom right is poison hemlock, which every bit of it is poison. It's what killed Socrates. And it also is spreading all over the coastside. This one is interesting. On the left is a plant called teasel, and it's just starting to show up on some of the properties, including one plant here. So like one of the goals of the stewardship that we want to do more of is to take this out. And Coastside Land Trust did do, led by Sarah Polgar, a very successful elimination on 50 acres property of teasel there. So it's really a good idea to try to identify the new invasive plants and get them out before they really can get a foothold. And then on the right, there's an old faded sign by Coastside Land Trust, and Coastside Land Trust is now working on a new system of signage for the properties. What makes it special? It's got a few native plants. It's got some small flowered, whatchamacallit? It's got some yarrow. It's got some more horsetail. Down below, that's a red admiral butterfly, and this area supports beehives. Not sure whose they are, but definitely they seem to be very successful beehives. And lots of birds there. So 35 species, 26 of them when we were there displayed breeding behavior. And at the nearest hotspot, 200 species have been seen. And here we have another finch on the left, and bottom left we have another white-crowned sparrow looking a little raggedy, probably molting. We have two different red-tailed hawks, and of course we have a bunny. I always put in the bunnies. I like the bunnies. Here's just a few views of what it looks like. Now we're getting to some of the more, the ones that people are more familiar with. Here we're going to look at west of right-of-way monitoring and conservation easement. So at the top, the orange is the old railroad right-of-way, which goes right along Railroad Avenue there and so forth. And then we have a monitoring area, which is called west of right-of-way. The city owns the land oceanward of all these lots right here. And we're very careful, again, not to do activities on land that doesn't belong to Coastside Land Trust, but we do hike the public trails and monitor this area every year. And it's an exciting area. It's got lots and lots of blue-eyed grass growing in the fields. It's so beautiful. It's not blue and it's not a grass, but it's still a wonderful native plant. Here, this is the trees that there's a group of cypresses out there on the coast. Perfect for raptors, perfect home for raptors. Here's the, we're on May, we monitored this, and here we are heading out. The challenges of this property, so many invasive grasses. Oh my goodness. So many different kinds. I'm not even going to go through them, but, and then over on the right is invasive radish. This is, on the right-of-way especially, there are a couple of things coming in. On the left is a terrible plant called yellow glandweed. And you can see on the bottom here just how this year it just exploded into tens of thousands of flowers. It looked pretty, but it's really wipes out any chance of native plant coming. Now these areas were farmed. We have aerial photos that show fairly recent farming, and that really got rid of a lot of the native seed bank in these things. But it is possible, and other groups have done good restoration. And one of the things to do is talk to like Edgewood Park, which got rid of its star thistle using volunteers and did an amazing job. Anyway, so we'd like to get rid of the yellow glandweed or reduce it anyway. In the middle, this is on the right of way, and there's just one patch of it. This is Himalayan blackberry. It has much nicer blackberries, unfortunately, but it also spreads like crazy and drives out the native California blackberry. And if you've ever been up to Southern Oregon and gone to natural areas there, it's completely overtaking everything. It's just I like to say some of these invasive plants are bullies because they just come in, nothing else can grow where they grow. So we want to stop this is another one where if we had the energy and the time and the money and the volunteer time, we could stop the Himalayan blackberry from spreading. And on the right, we have a problem that comes up when an invasive plant is really, really pretty. This is called salsify. It's a really elegant plant. Same thing though, it comes, it grows, and it takes over. So it'd be nice if we could get out just this first starting introduction of salsify in several of the preserves. Also, we have people making little homes. During this monitoring, there weren't any homeless encampments, but they were kind of, people had made themselves little spaces in the cypress trees with a lot of trash. Coastside Land Trust works with Abundant Grace to do cleanups when needed in the properties, and it seems like a really good partnership, works well for both. Here's the cypress grove, and again, we love the cypress grove. It's really important. The raptors love it. But you can see how right in the front of it, there's a whole row of baby cypress, and maybe Team Zimmer and someone, we discourage it from taking over the entire prairie area. What makes it special? Oh, so many birds. Sparrows and Anna's hummingbird and another housefinch and a raven. And the bottom right is a owl pellet that was under the cypress trees. And I love it when you can actually see the skull and the bones. You can even see the teeth of some little animal that the owl ate and then expelled in the owl pellet. We saw 37 species of bird, seven of them with breeding behavior. And at the closest hotspot, they've seen 221 species. And this is the most exciting part for the west of right-of-way. There's Savannah sparrows. This is a species of special concern. And during our monitoring, we saw 90, carefully counted, 90 Savannah sparrows. And this is an indication of just how important this habitat area is. They were definitely breeding. They were all catching food and taking food back to nests. They were singing and everything else. So and last year we saw, I think, something like 46. So the Savannah sparrows love this area, and it's really important for them. Here's just some more of the wildflowers. Again, as in so many places, the best wildflowers are right on the edge where they still have a little space. There's some sun cups left to go around. There's some sea pink and then to the right is the Alameda or brownie thistle, which is the native thistle. And I've only seen like a handful of them on the coast side, but there was one here this year. And then a lupin, forget which one that is, and Lasthenia or goldfields, the yellow ones, which make a beautiful spread across areas of the coast. In the middle is one of my favorite native plants called dense flower willow herb, which is a funny name. And then there's a close-up of blue-eyed grass. And then we have a harrier flying across and a bumblebee at an invasive birdfoot trefoil and a butterfly. I looked up what that butterfly was, but I don't remember. The right-of-way is the where the goats come to clear it out to reduce any fire danger for the adjacent homes. They really do eat everything there. I was curious to see if they would eat the yellow glandweed, so I dropped one down in front of that goat, and guess what? They loved it. But that's not going to be enough to get rid of it because they're annuals and they have hundreds of seeds. So our local expert on native plants, Tony Corelli, is very worried about the impact of the yellow glandweed on our coastal prairies. And so there's just few views of it. This is I'm going blank on it. This is a water plant that grows there on the coast. And then this is some of the gold fields I was talking about that comes in the early spring. And then look at this, blue-eyed grass. What can you say? That's one of my favorites. Anyway, moving on to 50 acres. Now this is a property where Coastside Land Trust purchased it. The Coastal Conservancy gave them a grant to buy it, I think from Peninsula Open Space Trust. It's where the Seymour Bridge is. It's just the Seymour parking lot is just to the north of this. So this is the Seymour Bridge. You can see it on the map there. So this belongs to Coastside Land Trust. It's just a little bit north of the Smithfield. And on our monitoring day, we were joined, I can't see the dates because they're under something on my screen, but I don't think you care about that anyway. It was in the spring. These are some board members of Coastside Land Trust, Jack McCarthy and Robin Kirby and Ryan, Tom, Jim. Anyway, these are board members of Coastside Land Trust on the monitoring day. And then here we are showing a trail into the eucalyptus, and then just a view of the grasses and the trees. And this is a view across the canyon there. Challenges, again, so many invasive plants. This one, I have to say, the 50 acres, considering that Coastside Land Trust owns the whole thing and can do a lot with it, if we could do some habitat restoration there, it would be wonderful. In the upper left, we have birdfoot trefoil and some, the pink one is called a century plant, and it just comes in great numbers. At the top is velvet grass. On the right is some more yellow glandweed. You can just see how thick it is. And the bottom one in the middle is the one I hate the most right now. It's called spiny southflower, southflower. And you may have had the southflower in your garden. This one is thicker, and just it showed up 3 years ago. We didn't have it before that, and now it's spreading everywhere. And you can, if you kick it just right, you can knock it over at the base, which is what I do in the spring. Anyway, it's really, you can see all the things that are coming in on the 50 acres. And then this year in the monitoring, we discovered some very cleverly disguised homeless encampments that were right on the edge of the bluff. So there's a strip of vegetation of trees there, and they were right there on the edge. And we're able to get Abundant Grace to come and help clean those out. And then again, here's another example of a, one tree spreading out where we have a lot of great trees. We need to make sure that we keep new trees coming to replace the old trees, but also keep the open spaces. What makes this area so special? This one's wonderful. So many wonderful plants. We have on the upper left is a plant, a species of special concern called popcorn flower. There's still little patches of it on this property. In the middle is tarweed, and then on the right is a blackberry, and the bottom right is blue-eyed grass, and then lizard tail in the middle, and the bottom left is called rattlesnake weed. Also, all these are native plants. The popcorn flower is interesting because there's still some patches on the coast, and I think if we tried really hard, there's a part right by the edges where we could try to remove the yellow glandweed and give the popcorn flower a little more space to come back. So just kind of it's on the ocean side of the trail and separated, so it would work. Anyway, just something we could do. We had the resources. And then 35 species of birds were seen, and the nearest eBird hotspot shows 198 species. I think we've talked about most of these kinds of birds. There's a California towhee right here, and then of course a hummingbird, and then mourning dove, Buick's wren, and another red-tailed hawk. And then the junior land stewards have their garden here and are doing a great job of bringing native plants. And there's other stuff on the junior land stewards program, which I really think is fantastic. And, but getting the kids out there, not only it benefits the properties, it's great for the kids to really get that sense of how important our coastal open spaces are. And then here's the coastal trail going through. I'm going to talk about the coastal trail in the next one, the exciting project that's coming up. This is more or less what it'll look like, a gravel trail. And there's some views, the eucalyptus forest, the prairies. This is actually, I just found out a little piece in the middle of it that was that one of the early junior land stewards group planted with some lizard tail and some yarrow, and it's doing beautifully. And I like this one because this is taken from the coast, and you can see the Johnston house through the gap right there. Wavecrest North. Now we're getting to the big properties. Wavecrest North, you can see how many lots Coastside Land Trust has managed to acquire on this property. This is, of course, the one that's right west of Smithfield. There we are on May 6th. And then here's the path going out, and that's popcorn flower on both sides. Doesn't that look inviting? And then in the spring, it was very damp. Had some really dramatic days early on in the coast. Challenges, erosion, it's a big problem. Here we have a bunch of ice plant. You know, they used to think it was good for fire protection and erosion control, but it's really not. It gets that dead stuff at the bottom that is bad for fire, and it gets so heavy on bluff edges that it can actually cause the bluff edges to collapse. So state parks, and one of the things I'd like to do if we all join together in this effort to create a stewardship plan is to talk to state parks, because they've done an amazing job. And what did it take to do that, and so forth. Here we go, just some more challenges, you know, just the same old plants. Oh, in the bottom left, another pretty one. This is pennyroyal. It's a mint, but it's invasive, and it's lovely, but it's spreading all over. And on the top left is that spiny sow thistle that I hate so much, and fennel that I hate. So what can I say? Look at this. This is just yellow glandweed and invasive grasses. And again, here's a little tree deciding to come up in the middle of the prairie area. What makes it special? Oh, so many great birds. On the bottom left, I'm just walking along, and there's a mother white-crowned sparrow, or father, feeding the baby right in front of me. There's a Savannah sparrow in the middle there, and you know, just the same old bush tit on the upper left. We saw 45 species of birds when we monitored it, and the closest hotspot shows 198 species. So, including raptors like the white-tailed kite. Oops. Just so much wildlife there, bees and butterflies and bugs. I figured out the name of that bug, but I'm not sure I have it right here. There it is. No. That's a field crescent butterfly. It's and black blister beetle on the yellow flower, and the Pacific chorus frog, also called a tree frog, on the left. Now this is really cool. This is a these are alligator lizards, and we posted this on iNaturalist and got the response. They have this charming habit of, the way they mate is the male grabs the female by the head, bites her head, and drags her off. And so when we posted it on iNaturalist, we got a note that said, "Thank you for uploading your photo of the two northern alligator lizards in a mating hold. I'm the curator of herpetology at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County and the lead scientist for the Reptiles and Amphibians of Southern California project here on iNaturalist. I have been using observations like yours to study alligator lizard mating behavior for the past 9.5 years. You can learn more," and he gives the web page. And he said, "Your observation is the 20th we have recorded for the 2024 season, like on the whole California coast. It is one of 2 mating observations for this species on May 6th, with the other being from British Columbia, at the complete opposite end of the species range." So it just shows that these lands can also contribute to science and helping to improve the overall health of our coastside. Wavecrest North has like this amazing patch of native plants that it's like a treasure. It's got paintbrush on the upper left, popcorn flower. We have soap plant in the bottom. On the bottom right is Dudleya, or Live Forever. It's a succulent that grows on the cliffs. I love it. It's one of my favorites. I had to stop putting pictures of it in because I had too many. And skunkweed up above. And then I wanted to do one more page just because the wildflowers on Wavecrest North are so amazing. On the upper left is a close-up of dense flower willow herb, the one that grows real tall and thin, native plant. I just think it's just a weird plant with these big clumpy at the top. And then we have paintbrush and gum plant. And then this in the upper right-hand corner is bull clover. These are all native plants. And on the bottom right is one of the great name called coastal button celery. It's very prickly, bright green. And then on the left is, I forget. Yeah, is whatever. So there's this patch I was talking about of amazing, amazing. That's bee plant in the back, and then just lizard tail and paintbrush. It couldn't be better. Now this is a place where Coastside Land Trust has successfully had volunteer days. This was a gloomy, rainy day, as you can see by the group there. And then they went out, and this was getting rid of some of the teasel in the area that they were very successful in doing that. Then I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this because there's a lot of information about it, and it's just so exciting. But Coastside Land Trust has got about $4 million, at least somewhere in that neighborhood, to extend the coastal trail. And so through Wavecrest, it's going to be a soft. It's going to be a soft-footed trail that's going to come along here, go back as the trail does now behind the ravine, but it's also going to have steps down and up on both sides of the ravine and come over here. And it's going to also include a lot of habitat restoration along these areas. My special patch of wildflowers is right here, so I'm sure it'll be protected. But there's more. If you want to know more about that, you can see it on the website, Coastside Land Trust website, and also work is going to start, and I was told that there may even be surveyors out there sometime in the near future. Just the beautiful views of it. There's some more coastal wildflowers. There's some more erosion, and look at that's poison hemlock on both sides, but it's a very pretty, inviting trail. And there we are, looking at the coast. Almost finished, getting finished here. This is Smith Forest. This is a new property that was given to Coastside Land Trust by Peninsula Open Space Trust. It's across, as you can see here, it's across from the ball fields. There's not a lot of public access. Eventually we might be able to, but it's very, very wet in the spring. And so here we are on our monitoring, picking up some trash. It's a meadow, and you can look and see in the spring how wet it is. Challenges, so much trash in there. Oh my goodness, including some kind of sculp. There's a barbed wire fence that goes around the former field here. You can see there was a farmer's field right here, this part. It had a fence around it, and we'd like to take that out. We've got an estimate of $25,000 more or less to take out the fence, which is not really in the budget now, but we sure would be nice to get rid of it. What makes it special? So many different 59 plant species, 25 were native, and in last year's monitoring we saw a rare native plant that when we put it on iNaturalist was called out as something very special. Here we have lots of ferns and lichens and so forth. And then there's deer. So all these pictures are from this year on the properties. So there's a deer from our monitoring this year, and some Pacific chorus frogs, a red-tailed hawk, and a harrier. Back, and we saw 24 species of birds, 3 nesting, and 4 common yellow throat, and the nearest eWord hotspot shows 198 species. So you see how important this is. Just some views of it. We're going to go quick on this one because there's not really public access. Get to Wavecrest South. That's 2 more. Wavecrest South. Now this is a huge area. So this is, you can see here's the aerial. It's the area south of the Arroyo, all the way to Highway 1. And you can see how many lots Coastside Land Trust has within this area. Monitoring in April. Popcorn flower. This is called Clarkia. This is a late bloomer, comes at the end of August on the edges of the cliffs, and is just incredibly beautiful. Here we are in the back of it. Those are acacia groves. This is where those 2 horses are, and Coastside Land Trust has property within the field where those horses graze. Challenges, also this fence also goes through this property. There's a bunch of jubata grass, pampas grass, and actually when the trail project happens, hopefully the jubata grass will be able to be taken out. This is the and then we have these giant black acacia groves, and they are somewhat useful for the raptors. Well, it would be nice if they didn't spread much more, but you can just see how many seeds there are in these acacia trees. And look at the eucalyptus seedlings expanding. But again, Coastside Land Trust doesn't do tree removal or anything on property it can't be sure it owns. And then here's another problem with all of them. Unregulated or uncontrolled dog walking. This person had 12 dogs and no sign of any poop pickup going on. And that causes problems on the beach. It washes into the ocean. They had a project where they came and picked up dog poop on one of these properties, and in 2 hours they picked up 30 pounds, something like that. You know what makes it special? It's one of the best places. 37 species of birds and 175 species at the nearest hotspot. In the spring, there's this, in the field where the horses are, there's a puddle, and it often has mallards. It had some blue-winged teal one year. There's a song sparrow in the upper left that I don't know that we've had before. And then just bluebirds. I love bluebirds. And then on the right is a juvenile Cooper's hawk. And then we have a northern rough-winged swallow and some American robins. So just so many birds on this site. We saw 101 species of plant, 55 of them native, and that isn't even counting all the different kinds of grasses, invasive grasses. We have soap plant on the left, Clarkia on the upper right, also called farewell to spring, some Dudleya on the bottom right, and that one in the middle, I love it, sneezeweed. And that's the flower, and it's at the end of these lines. It's a fairly tall bush. It's very cool. And then he just had to put one more slide. We have some California aster, some California blackberry, yarrow, and then this is a really cool plant called yerba buena. It grows under the other plants. It's very, and you can pick off a leaf and it smells wonderful. And then in the upper right here is the only known, at least we know of, coast live oak on the bluffs. It's on Wavecrest South. This is coastal button celery spreading all around. Isn't it cool? Native plant. And then we saw a garter snake there, lots of snakes, chorus frogs. I'm sure the garter snake would like to eat that chorus frog. And again, we saw deer in this property. The coastal trail project will go through here. So here's the edge of Wavecrest South, and it's going to come get rid of the parking lot here and do habitat restoration. And then there'll be bathrooms and parking back here and stairs here and so forth. So there'll still be access at Redondo Beach Road to all these wonderful, wonderful trails. And you can find out more about that great project. Some views. This is Goldfields in the spring. Look at that trail. Isn't that beautiful? Popcorn flower on the bluffs. This is Clarkia and buckwheat, coastal buckwheat, just grasslands. And then we're going to move on to the last property. We're going to leave the coast a little bit and go down south to Carissima Old Town site. This is where Verde Road is and the old cemetery. Coastside Land Trust owns the land behind the cemetery and next to the road at the corner there. And it was acquired through a donation from the Coastal Conservancy. Post had bought all of this land and wanted to make this be part of the Cowell-Porcima Trail, but then they decided it wasn't suitable for that. So they gave it to Coastside Land Trust. And one of the restrictions was because there are so many raptors breeding there that access be somewhat restricted, especially during breeding season. There we are heading out February 6th, early monitoring here. And the key thing, just a view, challenges, because of the way it was given and because of the importance of the raptors, access is limited. We do history tours that are a combination of history and natural history tours in the spring. And then challenges, lots of, look at the invasive ivy on these trees. It's just killing them and bringing them down. This is English ivy. This is Board President Barbara Lohman pulling some Cape ivy off a native coffeeberry bush. Here we have a big patch of bare land, which is where the meadow was. 2 years ago, well, a year ago, when they cleared for the public access, the Italian thistle had just set seed. And guess what happened? In the spring, it was the meadow, which used to be a mix of grasses and other things. The meadow was completely covered, choked with Italian thistle. So this year, as an experiment, they cleared it. And I actually went through and picked up a bunch of the seed. And we're hoping that there's enough native seed bank, so when the rains come, we will get some nice plants coming back. If not, then we'll do a habitat restoration project here. And then here, this is interesting. In the upper right is a new invasive we haven't seen much before. It's a kind of geranium called Herb Robert. And in the bottom right, here, sorry, something's going on in my street, is vinca, which is invasive in many spots. Interestingly, the biology report that came with this property said it might be historic. And the reason, and then two more things is, again, we have the tree issues here. What makes this area special? First, it's very historic. This is where the Dobble Mansion was, 17-room mansion. That sign where you enter the property is right where the red star is. I'm going to close the window. I don't smell smoke. And the cypress on these properties, you can actually, when you stand there, you can see the sweep of the arc of cypress trees from when this was a historic town. And on the other side, pretty much all those buildings are gone now. The charisma is just gone. This is the Dobble family who moved in there. They built that beautiful house. And I love the fact that he had a farm in Alameda and he made his money on a restaurant in San Francisco that served waffles because he was from Germany and had a German waffle iron. And they came down in a Conestoga wagon to their new fancy big mansion, and then the kids used the wagon as a playhouse. So here we are in July for the guided walks through the property. This year we had two teams of guides, walk leaders. Barbara and Robin were one team, and Barbara and Robin were on the other team. It was fun. People seem to really enjoy the combination of seeing how special this place is environmentally and seeing how the history. And then we also had a special walk for our donors, and then a special pop-up walk for Sequoia Audubon. On our map monitoring, we saw, oh dear, I can't see the number, it doesn't really matter. I was there one day and I just was checking it out one day, and there's this owl sitting on a branch. And then we have a spotted towhee and a junco, and then a turkey vulture and a raven. And then we have lots of other things in the spring we find these slender salamanders there and banana slugs. And then on the right, that's a wood rat nest. They build it, has little rooms in it and so forth. And then we've seen 45 species of plants, and 20 of them are native. So we have miner's lettuce, which is now being renamed to be Indian lettuce because the Indians evidently ate it long before the miners did. And then lizard tail, this is bush cucumber or manroot, another California blackberry, and then this is a lichen called ramalina. Here's some beautiful views of this property. You can see how dramatic it is. This is actually the site of the former mansion. There's a sunken area, and it would be fun to just get somebody to do a archaeology investigation of this property. There's the trail that gets made every year so we can take the public safely through the property. So we've been through all 10 of the monitoring areas. So Coastside Land Trust is proud of the work it's done acquiring and protecting local open space, the places you've just seen and admired. And this will remain Coastside Land Trust's highest priority. But we also work to take care of the land, doing monitoring, community education, removing trash, invasive removal, targeted exotic removal, trail construction. We could do more. We could have a stewardship plan, and I would like to see us work together to try to create a more specific stewardship plan for the Coastside. It'd be great to have a lot of community involvement. Set some goals, some achievable goals. Talk to state parks about the great work they've done. Talk to Edgewood. Talk to the Resource Conservation District, which I'm sure would be an enormous help. It would be nice if we could get them to do some priority evaluation of the things that we could do. And the Land Trust Alliance is an option for us. There is help available. So as I'm finishing up, we enjoy our open space in many ways. Let's work together to take care of it. Will you help us develop a stewardship fund? Thank you for watching and for wanting to know more about our magnificent Coastside open spaces. I want to close with this quote. This was used on our capital as the theme of our capital campaign in the South, and I just think it says something wonderful. It's from Willa Cather's My Antonia. The land belongs to the future. We come and go, but the land is always here. And the people who love it and understand it are the people who own it for a little while. And I could take some questions.
Thank you. What a powerful way to end this talk too. Just that we come and go, but the land is always here, and the people who love and understand it are the people who own it for a little while. Incredible gratitude to you for this presentation today. I think it is very clear, Barbara, how much passion you have for the work that you're doing. And in many, many years, I mean, here, 10 years, a decade of doing this work, monitoring, and more officially, and in longer years, additionally, and then all of your work down in LA County too. Just honoring and monitoring and stewarding and getting the word out and connecting people to this. So critical. We have Tina actually was asking, Tina was asking about ways that we can get involved in some of the activities that we're doing here at the Land Trust. And I'll speak to just a couple of those things, Tina, which is that we have in September, we have a coastal cleanup day, which will be classically done at Poplar Beach, but we're actually moving this year to Venice, which is one of our first properties that Barbara was talking about. And that's the September 21st. So we'll be on the beach there, but we'll also be up in the bluffs in that area there. So that's a great way to get involved. Also, we'll be doing fairly frequent restoration work days. And it's great. It's a great opportunity to make your mark, whether that's teasel removal, whether that's, graffiti busting, whether that's helping with the Junior Land Stewards Garden, any of those things. But it's also a great way to connect with community. As Barbara was saying, her vision of having us all kind of have this collective alliance, getting involved with us to do that is an opportunity for you to kind of connect with like-minded people, have those conversations while you're working. And we also have, as Barbara's talking about all of these raptors and all sorts of different birds, but we have this great raptor walk in November with Sequoia Audubon that will be, November's coming up quick. So if you hop on our website, you can already register. We have a wave crest raptor walk that we do. That's really, really neat opportunity to see a lot of these birds up close. Would you add on to that at all, Barbara? Ways to get involved that you see?
I would like to have some community meetings with people who are interested in this, just sort of, and maybe involve some of the agencies, like have a presentation and have people listen. And then, so we educate ourselves on what could be done here. And so I think if you send an email to info@coastsidelandtrust.org expressing interest, we can invite you to some of these meetings to talk about ways to take better care of the coastside. And that's my goal, is I'd like to have us come up with a really serious plan with some funding behind it, so that we have really robust efforts to deal with some of the problems. I mean, we're losing a lot of habitat all the time. These little bits along the coast are so precious. We need to keep them. So I think there's things we could do, and others have been successful. And with if people will sign up, we can figure out ways to make it productive. So it's really important when people do volunteer work that they show up and they have a project, they have the tools they need, and it really works for them to do something specific and gets people excited about it. So that's what I'd like to do, get people excited about making the coastside better.
Mm. Would you want to speak at all? Steve is asking, does CLT have specific ideas? Did you want to speak any more for your ideas of feasible first steps when you're talking about the stewardship committee? You've already been talking about that. Would you add on just specifically to the organization?
Well, I'd like to, figure out figure out what's the first thing to do. You know, how can we, let's make a plan. You know, right now what happens is we have a project and we all do a great job with the project. The teasel removal is a good example. But right now I don't think there's a list of projects. And I think if we had a list of projects and we ask for help from people who can help us figure out the best and most, I have ideas, but I'm not an expert on this. And there's people around who can say, so we would end up with a plan that said, look, these are our target things. First, we're going to work on trying to get the glandweed off this one part of the 50 acres. And we're going to see if we can we have Team Zimmer that's going out and removing some of the trees that are impacting the prairies. If people heard the webinar earlier by the expert on prairies, that was one of his main things, is you've got to keep your prairies open. So maybe we locate areas that we can do more of that.
Isn't that true also, right? It's just like whatever, it's like Dr. Elizabeth Johnson, right? She was talking about each of us knowing what is yours to give, right? Whether that's, if it's something, if you have an expertise in an area, then let that be something that you give that feedback. Like Barbara's saying, share that. If you have ideas, I mean, we all can kind of throw out concerns that we have, but just ideas, what can we bring to the table? And then, I mean, the other piece of it is, I don't know any of this stuff yet. So you're making a donation saying, my brain isn't into this. I don't know enough about this yet, but in the meanwhile, I'm going to support this initiative to preserve land. Or it's, I mean, some of the starting, to be honest, were you going to say something, Barbara?
I was going to say that if people send something to info and just say they want more information on stewardship, if we can set up some of these informational meetings so we can talk about what we could be doing, and we'll invite them. We'll make them official meetings that people can come to and help us figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, and I have some skin in the game here, but I would say the webinar, because I've been able to listen to and be a part of these webinar series for now a number of years, that's a great place to start. I don't know if you would agree with that, Barbara, but just
Sure.
There's such a breadth, like you're talking about Gray Hayes talking about coastal prairie, to, entomologists who are talking about that, to folks that are able to represent marine mammals that are on the coast, or whether we're looking at the botany from Tony Corelli. I mean, if you are just committed to, a couple of weeks of every night that you're doing dishes, you're listening to this and orienting to this, starting with Barbara, like sharing Barbara Dye's connection to our own space. And then you were able to kind of learn all these pieces that we could just sort of orient to this space. And once we get a little bit of a background, then you can kind of have some inertia behind it.
Maybe it is a webinar that I mean, I don't even know if they'd come, but I suspect that if we talk to state parks, we could get somebody to come. Maybe you do 20 minutes and then you do 20 minutes from the Edgewood people who've done amazing stuff. And then, maybe that's what it is. I want to know if there are people out there who want to help with this.
Help us figure this out. Awesome. Let's see. I know we're at the end here, but we have Ross has said beautiful. A lot of people sharing. Thank you for sharing. We'll make sure that Barbara can see all of these, but that is just a beautiful presentation, and really defines the goals of Coastside Land Trust. And he was sharing that AIA, San Mateo County, is open to working with CLT on future collaborations. A strategic look at the properties to see if there's a way to build a path for public access could be interesting. Need to go at the moment, but he's saying let's all follow up. So thank you, Ross. This is what we're talking about, like coming together, right? Let's see if there's any other questions. Do we intend to acquire more plots within these areas? Absolutely. That's another one. If you have any connections, right? We're all just bringing the pot together. Yes, Perry. And
yes, I made a point of it in the presentation that acquiring and protecting land is still Coastside Land Trust's top priority.
Mm-hmm.
That they want to keep doing that. And so if you have somebody who doesn't want to pay taxes on those 25 by 90 foot lots that can't really be built on, let them know. They can have a tax donation. They can have a tax write-off for donating it, and feel great about what happens to that piece of land that's been kicking around in your family for years.
Yeah, and send that our way, knowing what is yours to hold on to and when it is to give this something for, this land that's always here, right? It's ours for this little bit of time. Oh, thank you so much. It is, I want to honor our time a little bit because it's after 11.
I gotta go.
I think we got to everybody's questions, and I know, Barbara, you are so busy, so thank you for making this time to give this wonderful presentation. The question that are, moving forward from this is a gift for all of us who are coming on. Thank you for being here, and also I hope you feel the similar gratitude that I do to have this opportunity to really have this explained and connected to you. I would say that with this opportunity comes sort of, I would challenge you to take that as a responsibility on your end to share this, share what you're learning, share the value and that you have as you learn more. Share the video, share this when we're about to, the follow-up email will be coming out tomorrow. Monday at the latest, but I think by tomorrow evening, we don't have any follow-up questions that we're going to be adding. So probably by tomorrow, you'll have an email in your box. So with this recording, please just share it. Send it to people that you think might be moderately interested. If right now, if you're one of the people that are still here, think to yourself, are there 5 people I could share this to on the coast? And send these out, share the word. Also, you all know, I think Barbara was really clear, this, if knowing what to do, if you know how to donate, that will be shared with the within the follow-up email. Again, I mean, that is not to be undervalued, right? We are doing so much, and the opportunity to be a part of that, if that's something you can do, please consider that. And then just to plug that we have a couple of things coming up. We have a number of things, things populate as we go, but just that cleanup in September, the Raptor Walk in November. We have a couple of other webinars that are not posted yet, but are coming up very soon. One is in October, but we're finalizing details on that. So just check in. We send you very few emails, but when we send those, please take a look at those and see what's coming up next. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you to all of you who interacted here too. And yeah, we'll be sending you a follow-up email, and we will look forward to seeing many of you hopefully in our next coming events. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye, Barbara. Bye.